Hey, Mike Healy here. Listen, I'm excited for you to listen to this information, and I'll tell you why. At the time of this recording, I was actually in a company in which I had just recently gotten started, became the number one money earner. I made over $100,000 in a few months. I think it was like 4 months, so really rock and roll with the thing. And I took some of the best content that I had. I did this in front of a live audience of over 500 people, and put it into some common sense situations that people could use this information, immediately apply it, and build their business. Now, the whole CD that I have here that you're about to listen to is completely generic. You'll hear a couple spots in it just to let you know that there is nothing wrong with your CD player. That I did edit out the name of the company and some of the specifics and the names of people I may have referenced, but all of the information and content is fully intact, so you'll get the ideas, the business things you need, and the tips to help you really explode your business, whatever that might be.
Well, real quick, here's what you got to understand is when I started networking 16 years ago, I did everything you could possibly do wrong times 10 multiplied by 50, and so on. The very first presentation I ever did in the company we were with was Excel. We had a big flip chart. It was probably about a quarter the size of that screen. And the only way I had ever seen a presentation done was at a live hotel meeting with that flip chart. So I attempted to get lots of people to come see the meeting. And understand, I was coming from a bartending background, which is not a business background, in case you didn't know that. If I owned the bar, it might be different, but if I was just either a patron or a tender, not the same. But I would invite my buddies to come to this thing because I was all excited, and I invite them. And has anybody, I know this has probably only happened to me, has anybody ever gone to or invited people to a meeting and they didn't show? I knew I was the only one. Man, I must be hurt. No. But what it was is I remember what was funny is they had it in this same hotel every week, and I'd go there. And when I would watch it, I would go and I'd be waiting for my guests. I'd get there at 7 because I'm always on time. And at 7, I'd be watching. And I remember sitting in the lobby. I'd sit there right in the lobby, and they had a TV there. And I watched a little TV waiting for my guests. And I watched The Simpsons from 7 to 6:30 or 7:30. And I knew as soon as The Simpsons were over, the meeting was going to start. And whether my guest was there or not, I was going to go up there. And I'd sit there and I'd watch. That's probably where I get most of my recruiting skills is off The Simpsons. And I would sit there and I'd watch that. And I've had a lot of people that wouldn't come. Now here's the thing about that when I started. Was it didn't necessarily frustrate me because I always put everything I always put a spin on any negative thing. Anything that ever bad has ever happened to me in this business, I called it a story for the stage. Okay, write that down. It's a story for the stage. This is the stuff that kept me going through all the tough times because I went to eventually in that business I had gone to a couple presentations and I saw this couple was a good-looking, sharp couple. And they were making like $4,000 a month, which might as well have been $40 million a month. And I'm watching like, man, I want to be like that someday. We were together at that time. I was thinking, I'm going to the hot life. I already had it, so it was all covered at that point. But I was watching this couple, and I was like, man, someday. And I was sitting clear in the back where they're like that big, up on stage. And I remember thinking about that. Man, someday I'll be able to give my testimony on stage. And I think that's an important point that you have to understand is not to sound hokey, but if you don't see yourself in a position of success, you will never get there. Okay, and I'll kind of go from point to point on you here. But I remember being there and watching these presentations, and that was one of the toughest things because I had come from a business or a background that there was no success in my family outside of a job. I mean, my parents are great parents, had a great childhood, no complaints. My dad was a football coach, mom was a tennis coach. I had a great childhood, everything. I mean, it was all good. But from a business standpoint, I didn't have anybody that mentored me or showed me anything different financially. And I remember watching these guys, and the presentation I saw was the only one was this meeting. Well, I remember coming home, and Stacy she'd be all excited because I was real excited about this business. I had that first week walk, Man, Ron, we're going to be rich. These guys are making residential income coding, and he'd be like, yeah, you go get them. one of those deals. And I remember coming home and my guest didn't show, right? And she's like, oh, that's okay, da-da-da. And then the next week I invited people and nobody came. And guests didn't show, and I came home. Well, did they come? I'm like, no, they didn't even call. Da-da-da. And I go the next week. I went like 6 weeks in a row, and not one person I invited came. And the way I put it, the way I pictured it was like, okay, I said my dream was bigger than the stumbling blocks, the hurdles. And what I knew was I just remember picking one guy that was the guy I saw get the very first presentation. He used to be a farmer from Gallipolis, Ohio, which is a small little tiny town on the river down in Ohio. And the guy really wasn't flamboyant, wasn't spectacular. And his presentation on his flip chart was, well, you see, they got these bonuses. And you get $50 here, and you get 70 here, 35 here. A lot of people are making good money. And I think you ought to join us. There's some that was the presentation. I'm like, nodding off, but then at the end of the night, somebody goes, how much did this guy make? And he told me, and it was like $3,000 a month. I'm like, that guy's making $3,000 a month? Holy smokes, how's he doing it? That's amazing. But I grasped onto that guy as if he could do it, I could do it. So if you want, look around the room and see somebody you're better than, and say, I can do better than that guy. Right? Just stand up, go, I can do better than that guy and that girl. And, pick somebody that you want, or somebody you want to be like, or something like that. But I remember watching this presentation, and that's what got me to go. So I'd come home every night, and Stacy felt bad for me, and then I finally decided, well, I'm gonna have a home meeting. Right? It won't make sense. Why not just get people to come to my house? All my bartending buddies, so I'd have to probably have it about 3 in the afternoon because we'd all be getting off work about 4. So on a Sunday, I had my first home meeting. I put out a big spread. I went out and spent my own money to get, a vegetable tray and beer for my home meeting back then. And I didn't know any better. And I got this out there, spread out, and it's supposed to happen at 3 o'clock. Well, 3:30, I'm still the only one standing there. And I'm looking through the blinds. Oh, I'm sure they're on their way. Then I start calling about 3:45. I start making phone calls, and some of them are just waking up. Oh, I forgot. I thought Joe was coming. And I invited 10 people, and not one person showed. So I'm like this. I'm like, man, And Stacy's like, oh, it's all right. And the following week, I said, well, I got them all together next week. I said, hey, following week, I got 13 people this time, guaranteed, confirmed, life or death, they'd be there. I set out the whole spiel. Guess how many showed this time? 0. And I'm standing there, and Stacy's like, maybe this business isn't for you. And I'm like, I'm going to succeed out of spite now, just to make these people mad that they didn't come to my meeting. But I was bummed. It hurt inside when somebody, because I thought it was me. I thought, man, I just must be a bad person or something. But you have to remember, when you're approaching people, a lot of times, people are going to look at you, they're going to look at you and say, well, what do you know, Colleen, about making money? Why would I join Colleen if she's never made it? Don't take that wrong. But if she's never made any money in this before, why would she be my financial deliverer? Right? So a lot of people are putting that spin on it, and what happens is people become their own message as opposed to just becoming the messenger. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. But I sat and I had these meetings, and then what happened was I called somebody what they called an upline, which was somebody who got somebody above me. And I called this one guy, and he was a really nice guy, and he was the first guy that actually showed that I called, and I took the initiative, and it was so amazing. This guy was so excited that I called him and asked for help. Because I didn't realize that if you had somebody in your downline that wanted to work, that was a good thing. And so I called him, and he overnighted me some like a copy of the presentation on a thing, and I called him again. I was talking to him. I said, what can I do? And he says, why don't you go give a presentation to people? Instead of trying to get them to come to a meeting or things like that, you can do one-on-one presentation. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's my solution. So I called up, and he said, go after the most successful people you know. And I'm thinking about it, I go, who's got a big network and everything? And I just read that book on the coach, A.L. Williams is a coach. So I called up my godfather. My dad, basically my dad's dad died when he was little, and this guy pretty much raised him in. This guy is like Lou Holtz, except mean. Like everything is a cuss word. You know, if you can picture a hardcore, old school, run you into the ground football coach, you know, that just da-da-da-da, like all that fire and sass, and you just, what do you mean you need water this week? You know, that type of thing. You should be, you know, one of those things, right? So I go take this presentation. I take my giant flip chart, the big one, to his house and sit it on, he sits there like Ron would be sitting, I set it in front of him on a chair. And I'm shaking like this because I'm so intimidated to do this presentation. And I take this thing and I go, okay, I'm gonna do this. And he's sitting there like this. You know, because he's a guy that my dad was like, this is the man, you know, and he's in the Hall of Fame and all that stuff. And so I start flicking through these pages and they got this. And he looks at me and goes, I ain't doing that. It's a pyramid. I did one of those like 20 years ago. You're retarded. I'm like, and he starts cussing and saying all these things. And I'm like, really? People, oh, I can't believe you're wasting my, I'm like, oh, he was so brutal to me. I'm like, ah. And I brought in like 2 kits and a briefcase, and the briefcase was empty. I just was thinking I had to look like I was a business guy. The briefcase is empty. So I'm driving home. It's like a 45-minute drive home, and Stacy goes, how'd it go? I go, it didn't go that good. So the next time I did another presentation, I went and talked to Stacy. Stacy goes, well, my brother-in-law is kind of into business and an entrepreneur. Why don't you talk to him? And what happened was during this meeting, I called and found out there was a script, but I didn't actually have to use that giant flip chart. There was actually a little piece of paper one. So I didn't have to haul this big 3.5-foot flip chart to a one-on-one. So could you imagine seeing me in a coffee shop hold that up? I was doing that. And I finally go with this little the thing, and you could read the script, and I go, look, I just got to practice because I'm terrible at this apparently. And I started reading this thing, and I just sit there and let me practice. Well, he's a landscape guy. He owns a landscaping company, and one of his employees is sitting there. And I go through this, and all of a sudden the guy goes, the guy was presenting to Stacy's brother-in-law, and the landscaping employee was sitting there, and the landscaping employee goes, hey, I've heard of that company. He looks at this guy and goes, Ray, if you get in, I'll get in under you. I go, really? He's like, yeah, there's this guy in Gallipolis, Ohio, where I live, was the same guy that I knew that gave the first presentation. I go, yeah, it's Doug. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I guess he's making a lot of money and stuff. And he goes, I'll get in. And I'm like, wow. So I sign him up, right? So then the next presentation I do, because I'm thinking you got to go after these good people, was the guy that owned the bars that I used to work at on campus, because I'd only been out of the campus area for a little bit. And this guy was a ranger in Vietnam and owned these bars and was hardcore. Do you know where this one's going? I'm so intimidated to go give this guy a presentation that the guy I sponsored, Ray's brother-in-law, I make him give the presentation for me. I'm like, listen, will you go with me just to support me? So on the way there, and I'm like, I can't do it. You have to give the presentation. I can't. You have to. I'm not doing it. We're here. There's his house. We're in his park driveway, and I'm arguing with Ray to give the presentation. I'm scared. So I'm just giving you war stories so you know what the reality of maybe some of the stuff. And I'm sitting there, and we sit there, and we put him in his kitchen, and I've got this thing, and I think I still took the big flip chart, this one. And he sits there, and he starts just dropping, what are those, adjectives? Do we call them adjectives? Bombs on me, I'm like, he's cussing up a storm, giving this, and that's that, and I can't believe you're doing this, and da-da-da-da, and I'm like, oh, and this guy liked me, and and he's like, and you got your brother-in-law into this, and it's illegal, and you're going to jail, and all this, and we walk out of there, and we start laughing. And I look at Ray and I go, no matter what, I will never have a presentation as long as I live that brutal again. This thing's going to be a piece of cake. That's exactly all I thought. And I was walked out of there, and I to this day, I've never had one that brutal. Because I've learned, obviously, not to use flip charts and talk to psychos. Sometimes you can't pick them. Sometimes they're nut jobs, and you have to just learn to walk away. But I was like, no, it's a good thing. And, and I was very intimidated because I had no credibility and all that. But that's how I started my networking career. I just started it like any normal person that didn't have a clue what they were doing. I tried to reinvent the wheel. I tried to run ads. I was going to go buy a billboard. I was going to, borrow money from my dad to do TV. I saw a commercial once. That's how you build a business. Let's run TV ads. Dad, can I borrow $7,000? Mike, you have made $7,000 in about 2 years combined. You want to borrow it? No, not out. Come on, Dad, I'm going to be rich. Residential income. So that's how I started. The funny part was I continued to do it, and I started reading out of that manual and memorizing the presentation. And what I did is I started memorizing this presentation and asking people if I could practice my presentation on them. That was my way I got in the door. Hey, Ron, listen, I know you're a successful guy, and I don't want you to do this business, but can I practice a presentation on you so you can critique me? Sure, Mike, I'll buy you coffee, whatever. He meets with me, and I go, this is how they want us to do the presentation. You just watch me and tell me what you think I could do better or good. How intent is he going to look at me, given that presentation? And he goes through it. And guess what? I'd do 4, 5, 6, 10 of those presentations, and I'd end up signing 3 or 4 of those people that I practiced on. By just using that technique. I wasn't trying to be a business guy. I wasn't trying to sell them on electric or gas or phone or whatever it might be at the time. I was just trying to be myself and just asking somebody for their opinion. Does that make sense? Because it's a low thing. Now write this stuff down because I want to kind of stay on somewhat of a track here. I've got 5 basic steps in prospecting, and I'm going to go through each one in detail. Number 1 would be prospect. Prospect, contact is the second. Present. Follow up. And repeat. Prospect, contact, present, follow up, and repeat. Got it? If not, look at the other person next to you. Go, what did he say? Prospect, contact, present, follow up, and repeat. This is really just the small formula that if you get the idea, if you get the concept, this is how you get your business going. Okay? And the cool part about this is it's just small skills that if you pick them up, and I'll try to go through some of those with you today. It's small skills that if you learn them over a period of time, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, don't you get better typically? Okay? Here's how I started when I started way back when, is how many people like to public speak? Good, like 3 of you. Do you know that's like 4 of them? That's like, I think that's like in line for, they would rather not speak, and then they're afraid the things that you fear the most is public speaking and then actual death. So if you don't die during the public speaking, you've got death to look forward to as your next worst thing. But I was very, very intimidated to speak. I mean, I still get butterflies when I come up, and I might sound cool, but I'm inside, I'm just churning. But I learned how to do a presentation because I realized that the people that made the most money typically were standing in front of the room. So if you want to make the most money, where should you eventually end up? Where do I want to be? Say it, come on. The room, right? So you're going to have to learn to do this. It's getting out of your comfort zone. What I did is I ended up watching a video in the first company I was in of a guy that gave a presentation. And you've probably seen all this. Now here's what I did. When I was going to those meetings and nobody was showing, I kept telling my wife, I said, eventually I'm going to be making so much money and so many people want to hear about what I've got that I need to know how to give a presentation. So I'm going to watch this guy give a presentation. Well, then they had this cool invention called a VHS tape. And somebody gave me a videotape of a guy that was making like huge money, like $80,000 or $100,000 a month. And he gave a presentation. It was exactly how they were doing it. And I sat there and I watched it over and over and over and over and over. Like there's a lot of presentations online, and you guys see the webinars that are online and stuff like that, right? Look at every time you go to one of those things as a learning experience. You have to picture yourself as I'm sitting there watching it. So what happened was, eventually I got a small team started because I was going to the people, asking them if I could practice, and then I got enough people that eventually we decided that we would have it at a little hotel meeting, like a small room about this size right here. It was like a quarter right here, this little area. And I remember the first meeting, we were so fired up. There was 3 of us. There was 4 people that showed. 3 of us were in the business, and 1 guy we pulled out of the hallway as he was walking. Wasn't even anybody that we'd invited. But we were fired up, right? And I gave the best presentation I'd ever given to 4 people in my life. And we were fired up. The 2 guys I was with, they both had really long hair and played in rock bands. I had short hair. I actually had almost a mohawk back then, but that's how we got started. And I remember watching this presentation. Well, eventually, I kept watching the presentation, and I'd have people come over, and I learned, one of the biggest things I learned to do, if you noticed in the presentation I did earlier, is I learned, one of the most important things I learned is to be yourself. This is probably the biggest handicap that most people come up with. As soon as they jump into this business, all of a sudden they turn from being themselves into what they think appears to be a business person. And it completely baffles somebody. Well, weren't you Mike Healy like 2 seconds ago? Who the heck are you now? And I'm wearing, I don't wear a tie in the day. I don't sit at my desk in my home office in a tie and suit. Hey guys, Mike Healy here in a tie and suit, and I'm talking to you from, I don't do that. Basically what it was is I learned over a period of time, because I made a bunch of mistakes, I just learned to say, hey, take it or leave it, this is what you get. This is what I'm doing it, this is why I'm doing it, and this is how I'm getting my business going. And I got it kind of started like that. But the cool part was, once I got my meeting going, I got a handful of people coming, how many like to play pretend when you were little? How many not going to admit it just because it's kind of weird that I said that? Yeah, a few of you. Basically, when you play pretend, it's fun, right? I love playing pretend. I like playing cops and robbers and Indians and all that. You play pretend, you play Star Wars and things like that. It's the same thing when you're talking to people in this. When I go sit down with somebody, a lot of times I still have the same issues that everybody else has. What if that guy has money, I don't have money? What if he doesn't like me? What if I have food in my teeth? Anything you can think of that you can't, that tries to intimidate you. What you need to do is learn to play pretend. Be yourself, but with your own personality. But I tried to be with a mentality of I was going to be that guy making all that money. I was someday, and this guy wants to hear what I've got to say because I know where I'm going, that type of thing. And I gave the presentation in front of groups of people, and I would sit and talk to them, and they would be sitting there. And what was funny is they eventually came to a meeting that the actual guy I had memorized on the videotape gave the presentation. And afterward, I could watch their faces, and they were like, because I said the same jokes. I'd say, you don't know the difference between beans and bacon when you're making $500 a month. I mean, it was the same jokes. There's, I like to wake up with a crack at, crack at 10:30. I used all those jokes, and they heard this guy give the same presentation, like, oh my gosh, that's you. I'm like, well, no, I'm him, and I copied him. And they're like, that whole time we thought you were real smart, giving great presentations. I go, exactly, it was this guy, and it really was effective. It worked. It was just something I memorized. Okay. And here's the thing: you can't be all things to every person. You might want to remember this or write this down. You can't say the right things to the wrong person. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person, and you can say all the right things or all the wrong things to the right people, and those people will join you. So you just really, a lot of times, you never know. Okay. So jumping into the prospecting, what I do to prospect, and I'll kind of walk through how I got started, because the first question came up: how do I make that much money in a month? Well, first off, I didn't pull a lot of people over from my other organization, just so you know that. These were fresh people, because I have non-compete things with my other company that I don't want to ruin those people's businesses. Those are friends and income streams we already developed, right? So this was new people. The thing was, if you learn these skills, you can do it with anything. You can do it in your job, you can do it anything like that. So what I began to do was, the first thing I did is I made a list. Basically, prospecting is making a list. Now, that could be any way you look at it. It could be the current Rolodex you have. It could be your address book. A lot of your lists are already made for you. You just haven't prioritized them. One of the biggest things with prospecting that you have to remember is you can't tell the duds from the studs, or the zeros from the heroes. It is absolutely impossible. I can't stand it when somebody comes up and goes, oh, I talked to Jairus, and Jairus is going to be awesome. He's going to be awesome. How do you know? I said, he's awesome. He's going to be, he may be thinking positive, but you don't know. Oh, this guy, he'd be so good at that. Or, you ever heard this? I don't want to talk to him. He doesn't need the money. Right? Or, oh, I don't want to talk to that lady. She lives over there, that type of thing. You ever seen people do that? They prejudge? Never prejudge people. Learn, and this is something that a top money earner told me, and a guy looked just like a claw back there. Damn it. And it's funny, every time I see him, I think it's the same guy. Man, he looked just like my buddy Chris. But what it was is this guy said, learn to be the messenger and not the message. And what he did is he explained it, is a lot of times when you get excited about this opportunity, like I would say, Chris, man, this company is amazing. They've got this thing like this, and I started to try to go into the presentation while I'm initially talking to him. A lot of times what's going to happen is he's only going to be looking at me as to why, Mike, you bartend. What do you know about business, right? So he'll be prejudging me on that aspect, so he probably won't even be hearing any facts. I'm probably not the expert in his eyes. So what I have to learn is to make a bridge between me and him. I got to figure out some way to get my message to him in a way that he'll listen to it. Because that's all this is. All this business is telling a story. If you notice when I gave the presentation this afternoon, I basically didn't. Most of you will not remember any of the facts that I told, and most prospects will never remember. He works in residual and everything like that. What they will remember is they had a good time when I presented. Does that make sense? They laughed. I joked around. I made fun of myself. I was just being me, and it made people comfortable that the defenses went down that I wasn't selling them something. Anybody ever been to a car dealership or anything where the salesman the salesman has to make the sale? You get that uncomfortable feeling. If people feel like that when you're sitting with them, they're not going to join your business, right? People want to have fun. They're already under enough stress in their entire lives. But if I was sitting there with Chris, I wouldn't want to prejudge Chris. But most importantly, if he and I were kind of on the same level, we knew each other, because most people will approach their warm market first, I would have to use a tool or an outside source to give my presentation for me. Does that make sense? Because now I need the message to come across clear to him. That can be done any number of ways. How many people have a DVD player? Okay, there's DVDs that have presentations on them. I brought one that I just recently made, and I give the presentation, exact one I just showed you. How many people have an internet connection? Everybody, right? You have videos, you got webinars, you got things like that. The only thing that you have to learn to be or do is set appointments. Go after people. When you're prospecting, you're making your list. You're making your list of people that you need to get in front of. Okay? And then on the second part of the contacting, I'll talk to you about that. But on the prospecting portion, is you should never give a presentation on the initial contact. Okay? Here's the most effective way I've done it. I sit at my desk at my home computer there at my house, drinking coffee, and I would make it a point that I know my average, my ratio of talking to people that see this presentation. If I show it to 10 people, typically I will get a minimum, even if I do a bad job, I'll get a minimum of 1 to 2 people in out of 10. Fair enough? Now, if I know that for a fact, then I'll get, on average, no less than 1 to 2 people for every 10 people I want to put in the business. Do I have basically a formula for as much success or as little success as I want? Yes. Because now I can go out and what's your name? Cynthia. So I can go out and I don't prejudge Cynthia. I don't know where she's at in her life. But I can say, Cynthia, here's what I do. Okay, I'm sitting at my desk. I'll make a phone call. I'll say, hey, Cynthia, this is Mike Healy. Do you remember me? Oh, yeah, great. Do you remember we met at such and such? Yeah. Listen, Cynthia, I know you're busy. I know you don't have a lot of time right now. I know you're busy. You see what I said? I know you're busy. But I came across something and it really appealed to me, and I was thinking of you. I know what you do. Do you care if I send you an email? No. Well, thank you, Cynthia. You're awesome. Well, let me see. Is this your correct email address? Yes. Okay. Well, listen, I know you're busy. I won't take up any of your time. Thank you, and just be looking for it. Is that cool? All right, have a good time. I am on and off the phone on my initial contact in less than 20 seconds. Less than 20 seconds, I am on and off the phone. I know I am not smart enough to do a presentation immediately and sign her up. Somebody asked about, can you sign people on the initial contact? No. Okay? What happens is it's a systematic approach, basically. It's little drips. Now, here's what my email says, because this is very important. Very important. Cynthia, thanks for letting me send you this. Click on my link to view my website presentation. Thanks, Mike. Did you guys get that? That was important. That was a hard one. One more time. Somebody said it. One more time. Thanks, Mac. Cynthia, thanks for letting me send you this. Here's my website, or however you put it. I can't stand it when people try to recruit me in companies and they send me a dissertation. Well, in 1995, the deregulation of electricity happened, and we're all going to be rich due to the fact he is now. I'm like, delete. Everything I do is in info bursts. If you ever send me an email that's more than this long on an email link, it's probably not going to get read. I got stuff to do, right? You're taking up my time, unless it's important. But don't say. I've seen people go, "This is why I joined. This is why I'm in. This is how I love, life. And my cat's purple and all this." And they just put all this stuff in it. Just bullet points. Okay, you take it and you say, "Cynthia, thanks for letting me send you this. Watch this presentation." Boom. Now here's the thing. Can I control that action? Nope. Yes, I can. I didn't ask if I can control if she gets in. Can I control sending emails to people? Yes. And the reason I always call and ask permission, has anybody ever received an email that they didn't ask for? Everybody. Yours will get lost in the shuffle. Here's what happens. A lot of people get in, they get intimidated about their business, and they go, "Man, I'll just blast everybody on my address book." They blast everybody, nobody replies back. Right? "Oh, this person doesn't work." It does work. What you have to do is you got to learn the skills to get it done properly. What happens is now she gets the email, she expects it, she's looking for it, and she heard how excited I was within 20 seconds. Whether you have to make a phone call standing up and smiling in the mirror just so you have the good posture, they'll feel it coming across the thing. "Hey, Cynthia, how you doing?" I don't go, "Cynthia, this is calling." Really, where do I sign? Do you know what I'm saying? I just make, these are important points that people overlook, is I make a quick contact. Now, if I did that 10 times in a day, how many presentations did I basically set myself up for? 10. Okay? So now I've given 10, basically I made 10 contacts. Now, the presentation is this. The only reason I sent her an email was I just am trying to get my foot in the door for the follow-up. Okay? And I'm going through and I'm kind of skipping over some of the process. I'll make points here. But I would go to her and I'd say, "Cynthia," I'd call her up within 24 to 48 hours and say, "Hey, Cynthia, this is Mike. Did you get my email?" What's she going to say? Yes or no? If she says yes, my next question would be, "What? Did you watch the video or the presentation or whatever? Did you make it on the webinar?" However, whatever you did. And she would say yes or no. If she says yes, this is the next phrase out of my mouth. "Really? Would you like the best of what you saw? Would you like best?" I don't want to go, "What'd you think?" I don't want to know what she thought. She might have had a bad day. "What'd you like best?" Right? Now here's the thing too. Do you remember the initial phone call I made in 20 seconds? Yes? It was quick and I rushed her off the phone. I rushed her off the phone. I rushed her off the phone. When my caller ID comes up the next time, is she going to answer my phone call? 99.9% of the time. A lot of times people will, "Man, that guy won't call me back. I've called him 90 times this week." And he, and when you got, it's like the Cable Guy movie when you got 50 messages from one person. "Hey, I thought I heard you pick up. I'll call you back later. Hey, it's me again. I'll just say, I'll get you later, da da da." Because the first conversation you rattled on and 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 on, and they were in a hurry, they were washing dishes, and the kid was crying in the background, but you were trying to pitch them on your opportunity. You got to use common sense in some of these situations. A lot of people, believe it or not, these are skills that people don't get. It's just small little things that professionally you make bullet points to these people and boom, boom, boom. Now she's comfortable with answering the phone because I didn't waste her time last time. And if I call her and I said, "Hey, Cynthia, what'd you like best?" Guess what she's going to now do? Tell me. Wow, what a great concept. And here's the thing. If I called her and say, "Hey, Cynthia, what do you think about those?" But she was excited about it. Am I doing the wrong thing? I have to let Cynthia do the presentation for me. And here's what I mean by that. Role play with me, okay? Yes?
Yes.
Cool. So Cynthia, what'd you like best about what you saw? Okay. Well, I'll call you back, Cynthia. Thanks. Nancy, what'd you like best? Now, here's the thing. She might be, we'll just, you saw the present. Let's say I sent you the website and you saw the presentation. Okay, Cynthia, what'd you like best?
I like that.
Guess what I'm going to be talking about now? I'm going to go right to my website. I'm going to and I'm pulling up all the details. You see, here's how you get everybody that you, a lot more people that you talk to, is you let the prospect dictate the presentation by you asking all the questions. You can steer anybody to do anything by asking questions. Anything. Okay? And it's just something, if you learn to do it, it's very powerful. Like I had, what was your name again?
Wes.
Wes. Last night, Wes comes up to me. We were out at a meeting, and Wes comes up and says, well, I don't know if I want to come to, basically, without saying it, didn't know if he wanted to come to the training today. Right? Okay, you don't have to admit it. That's fine.
You're good.
I'm good. But I read that on him because I've been in front of people before. And I said, Wes, what do you want to know tomorrow at the training? I don't want to talk to him about stuff he doesn't want to know about. I don't want to go into that. You see what I did at the very beginning of the presentation? I asked every single one of you guys, what do you want to know? And I have them all written down right here. I can get anything done. I can get anybody to be a customer. I can get anybody to be a rep, because all I learned how to do specifically was ask the right questions to the right people at the right times about the right things. She's going to tell me, Greg, you saw the presentation. What'd you think? What'd you like best? Man, Rickard, you know what? We used that. There's my testimony. Jairus, what'd you like best about what you saw? Nothing. That's terrible. You'd say it's a pyramid. It's a pyramid thing. You're right, man. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have sent it to you. I can't pronounce your name. What is it? Monique. What'd you like best? Bonuses. Now I got my business person. Somebody asked me, guess what? I got a customer, possibly. Worst case. Now here's the thing. Somebody asked me about gathering customers. I never, ever, ever, ever go after a customer. Ever. Tell you why. Okay, and then keep me on track here because I'm rabbit trail. I run into him. I don't know his background. Okay, I don't know that he's a network marketing guru. But I go up and say, Ron, man, I'm trying to get this so I can make $100. Will you please be my customer? Well, sure, Mike. I'll help you out. Da da da. And then he's my customer. I got a customer. I made $100. I'm gonna make $1 a month on Ron. Then Ron shows up at my meeting next week, and I want to put a gun to my head when I found out that Ron's a network marketing guru, and all I did was ask him about being a customer. Here's what I do. Ron, I got this business. Can I send you an email? Yes. Do you want to do this? Da da da. We may have 3 or 4 conversations. I build a little rapport. Ron says, you know what? I'm too busy. It's not really something I can put on my plate right now. But I wouldn't mind trying that. Or I could say at the end of my conversation, I say, you know what? I can see you're probably too busy for this. This is probably not the right time for you. Just on a conversation we had, I let him out. I'm going to let him off the hook. Say, Ron, you know, if you're interested, would you at least just try one customer? What would he probably say, since he saw I did such a good job giving a presentation and everything, right? Did I win if I lost? Yes. If he became my rep because I at least took the initiative to show him a rep, then I'm really winning. Do you see what I'm saying? A lot of people focus on being a salesperson, being a job mentality when they're doing this, and they're focusing all the details on the customers. I don't know anything about any of the services. I just memorized a few things that I can sound like I know what I'm talking about when I'm giving a presentation. I don't know squat, but I know they have enough benefits that I can get them. But I'm getting paid on thousands, which makes more sense to me than knowing. Right? I'd rather get paid on it than know about it. That's just me. But you see the whole thing is I never go after a person just to be a customer because I rob them of the opportunity. I rob them by trying to get them to sell a thing. So if I look at everybody as, I don't care if they get in or not, I'll work through people quickly, okay? And by doing that, how hard is it for me to sit at my desk because I got a job, I'm busy all day, I've got kids in school, I got soccer practice, I don't have time to do a lot of stuff. I built the last company I made almost $1 million in 4 years with the last company I was with because I was working as a personal trainer and I hated it. Getting up, I had to finally get a job because the other company I went in didn't go, and I won't go into detail on that. But I would sit on the little, the bike. There was a little, one of those stationary bikes next to the phone, and in between clients, I had 15-minute windows. 15-minute windows inside the thing, and I built almost $1 million income by using this. And here's what I did. I would sit on there, I just slowly pedal. I wasn't trying to pants, I didn't think I was a freak on the phone. But I just slowly pedal to keep myself going. I'm like losing weight, I'm staying in shape, making money. Right? I'm sitting there pedaling, and then what I would do is I'd make a phone call, and I'd say, hey Paul, it's Mike Healy, you remember me? But I have a little notebook about that big, little pen and stuff like that. And people were working out, clanking. I said, look, I was thinking of you. I know I know you're busy, and I got another client coming in here, but I was thinking of you. Do you care if I send you an email? No, of course not. So we'll be looking for it, and I'm going to send it to you. And what's on it is I want you to watch this website. It's only a couple minutes long, but I think you're going to love what you see. Well, I know you're busy. I'll let you go. Thanks for letting me. I'll get it back to you, and I can verify her info, and I got her phone number because I called her. Right? So now, boom, I got all that information. I would just make a list of, during that day, I might make 10 to 20 phone calls and get a hold. Sometimes if I had the time, I would take a whole hour, and I would take, because I knew I had to get some stuff done because I was starving. We were broke and I needed to get things done. So I took a yellow pad and I wrote it down and I said, no matter what, I'm sending 20 emails to 20 people I talk to. Now, I may make 20 phone calls and get all 20 people to answer, but typically that didn't happen. But I would call and call and call. And here's the thing. My only goal was to get that done. That was a great accomplishment, to get 20 people to get an email that I personally talked to on the phone. It's all about putting people in pipeline. So if I called Ron, Becky, Cheryl, Dave, Mike, and I would get all these guys on here. I'd say, hey, I talked to them. I might dial the phone 20 or 30 times. I didn't leave messages, never left messages, okay? I would just go through these people as quickly as possible to get to those people. And if I did that, that was awesome, okay? Because here's the thing. If I send out 20 emails to people, I will probably have 3 to 5 that are interested, that want more information. So when I follow up with them, and I just took a little piece of paper and I said, this is when I sent the email, and 24 to 48 hours, this is when I want to follow up. And I always thought at the end of my emails, I put my name and my phone number, obviously, right? And I would send them. So then, after a couple hours of sending these, the next day what I would do, or whenever, I'd take a period of time, like a half an hour of my day, to follow up with the people I'd already sent the presentations to on Monday. I'm now making 20 prospecting calls on Tuesday or Wednesday, but I'm following up now with the people I sent emails to on Monday. What's my question I'm asking? Ron, what'd you like? And he's going to tell me. And guess what? I'm just chilling, I'm laid back, I'm just having a conversation. I'm not selling him on anything. The whole presentation, the reason I sign so many people up is not because I say anything smarter than you or do anything better than you. It's because I have an attitude that I'm going to win regardless of what anybody says, number one, and I don't care. I'm nonchalant about it and I have a fun time. Worst case, I'm going to have a good conversation with Ron and build my relationship with him stronger. Who knows? Ron might hit the lottery and remember I was a nice guy and need somebody to donate it to down the road. You never know, you know what I mean? But I'm having good conversations with people so that they can remember what, that when I call the next time, they know what's going on. And I just filled that pipe. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Go.
So,
I won't want to take questions from the crowd very often, but go ahead.
when you run out of your warm market, you do that in so many network marketing. When you run out of that warm market, can't use those other people again.
I use everybody again. I contact I haven't used my last group, but I never throw away a business card. I don't care who gave it to me, from where or what store I was in. I always have business cards. I've got thousands of them at my house. They're in rubber bands and stacked. All the people I've known from business, from high school, from everything. Anybody that I've at least come in contact with, or I can call and say, hey, I don't know if you remember me or not. I just make that out, because it's not intimidating, and call somebody and say, I don't know if you remember me or not, right? And somebody does that. A lot of times what it is like I don't prospect now anymore. I don't prospect every single person that I touch. A lot of times. But if we're having a conversation, okay, and then you know what? Let me go on that point. It's my elevator speech. A lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. Is let's say Greg and I are in the elevator. I'm at this hotel and we're in an elevator. Oh, you know what, Greg? I like that shirt. That's awesome. Where'd you get that?
Salvation Army.
Nice, man. Are you also go there a lot? Whatever, da-da-da. What do you do? Or maybe he's got a pin on or something like that. That wasn't quite the thing, no. But here's what I'm trying to do. If you've ever had a conversation with somebody, and you ask them a lot of times, what do they do? What are they going to tell you? What they do. Typically, if they got a personality, what are they going to do next? Ask you what you do. Okay, here's my little elevator pitch. I always come up with, well, you know how. Write that down. Well, you know how. And then the end of it is, well, what I do is. Okay, and here's the thing. I would tell you not to copy what I say, but be yourself. Come up with what tripped your trigger about this. And how I would approach that is, if I'm in the elevator with somebody, I say, well, what do what I do? I lost my train. I see people do that. I love going to conventions with new people. I will actually find a table that a new person is prospecting the waitress. It is so funny. Stacy and I were joking about this. When you walk in, usually all the leaders come in early, right? They come in early. Hi, welcome to the Hilton Hotel. How are you? Great. Da, 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 da. We're here at a conference. Oh, great. Have a great time. When we're checking out, they go, can I help you? I mean, they got beat up. You'll see behind the table, there's like a stack. Every single person. You need to, Jairus, there's this thing. Da, da, da. People just throw up on people. It is so funny. By the time they never even want to hear about the company. The taxi cab drivers want to just jump out the moving vehicle half the time. It is so funny to watch people do that. Because a lot of times what they're doing is they're not taking their time. They're just spewing off and they're getting crazy about it. And they're not being simple. So when I ask her, I said, well, what do you do? And she said, what do you do? And I said, well, you know how, or whatever, or, hey, you know how everybody's pretty much looking for multiple streams of income? Yeah. I show people how to get that. Oh, wow. I said, look, I don't know if you're interested or not. Here's my card. If she doesn't come back with anything sharp, I'll just pull out a card and I'll give it to her. Okay? I'll just show her a business card and hand it to her. Boom. That's not hard, right? Right? So you got to win. What's that? I'm not following up. If she calls me, she does. If she doesn't, she doesn't. I'm not going to track her down and Google GPS and find out where she's going. Then she'll freak out. If you can actually identify where somebody is, if they met you in an elevator, they're going to think something really weird's going on and they're going to hide. Stalker! If you get their card, that you can do that. A lot of times I'll say, well, if you, I don't have a card. If somebody's sharp or whatever, say, you know what? Oh man, I ran out of cards. I gave so many out today. Do you have a card? I can send you an email and you can check it out. I do that a lot. Sure, and I'll collect emails or business cards. It's like a reverse Easter egg. Now let's say I got. Here's the thing: is to me, it's more important to say less to more people than to badger and beg one person to get in. I say most people fail because they think they have a hot prospect. And they single out that one person. And they'll go, oh, Colleen, I got to get Colleen in. Colleen's going to be my stud or studette. And she's going to be awesome. And I get her and I call her. And all of a sudden they quit totally prospecting. They quit doing everything. They bank their entire business on Colleen getting in. And when Colleen's tired, and then here's what happens. Colleen eventually will get worn down. And she'll go, oh God, for $99 I can pay this person to leave me alone. I just joined for $99 they'll get in, they'll stop calling me. She'll get in and then it gets worse. Right? And pretty soon the phone's disconnected and they've moved to Ohio. And so do you see what I'm saying? People do that all the time. It's simple stuff, but it's like they just throw etiquette out the window a lot of times when they're out there doing this because they just changed mentalities. They just got cloned into something goofy. So you want to be very careful. Just be yourself. Have a conversation with a person. Share with them why you're excited. I shared something with us. I think this is incredible. This was such a good point. And I thought I'd heard of most networking sayings. But when we went down for the gold leadership thing a couple weeks ago, he said, I'm going to show you guys what I did to make 7 figures. I'm like, I'm listening. I haven't made 7 figures in a year yet. And he said, one of the things he said, if you'll call 100 people and tell them where you're going, you'll get there. And then he started talking about it. He said his mentor, when Mark wasn't making any money, he told him that he needed to do that. He said, here's what you need to do. And here's what made sense to me, and I'm going to break it down for you. Was most of you can't give anybody an enthusiastic, hey, this is Mike, can I send you an email? Because you really don't know where the heck you're going with this thing yet. You haven't put it in your head that you're allowed to be successful. And, so what happened was basically, I'm going to rabbit trail. I have a t-shirt that looks just like AC/DC printing. It says ADHD on it. The same print. So if you wonder why it's fun. Anyhow. You guys didn't think that was funny. I thought it was hilarious when I got it. I work out and it still goes, yep. But when he was talking about this, he said, what he said is, the guy approached him and said, Mark, where are you going? Where are you going with this business? Because people are going to follow leadership and people more often than facts or figures. Okay, and what? Vision. People are going to follow vision more than anything else out there. Now here's the thing. I use these simple steps to just prospect. I just talk to people and I get simple things to get my foot in the door, because all I'm trying to do is begin to strengthen an old relationship or start a new one. Okay? Or I already have a good relationship regardless. But I'm using that, and eventually I'm going to have the chance to tell them where I'm going. Okay? And here's what happens. When I'm talking to Cynthia and I tell her and say like this, and I'd say, Cynthia, listen. And this might be different, but if I was talking to Cynthia, listen. I'll tell you exactly why I joined. Okay? I'm not prospecting her. I'm just telling her who I am and what I'm all about. I say, I went down, and here's the thing. People will always remember stories more than facts. Stories, facts tell, stories sell. Facts tell, stories sell. Facts tell, stories sell. But I would sit there and I would talk to her and I'd say, Cynthia, listen. All I got to do is tell you this, is I joined because we weren't making that much money, and I believed in the guys that did. I met a guy that was making this amount of money. And I just was very intrigued by the story he had. And I met this other lady, Paula, and she had a great story. And the stories appealed to me. And when I started doing my due diligence, I realized that probably if I continue to do exactly what I'm doing with this business, I will probably, without a doubt, be making 6 figures in probably less than a year to 2 years on a residual basis, and I haven't even changed anything. That's the only reason I called you, is I just needed somebody to tell this to. What's Cynthia going to do? She's going to start thinking. Even if she says no, it's stuck in her head. She's, and I do that with different levels with different people. Like if I call somebody that's never pictured themselves as making a lot of money. And here's what Mark also did. What was cool is I didn't realize this is how I did what I did. Is when I would call people in my other companies, I would just get excited and I would tell them about where I was going. But then the most important thing on the back end of where I was going was I would tell Chris where he's going. After our conversation, I knew what his wants and needs were because I asked the right questions, right? Chris told me that he's got a couple kids, he's looking to stay home, downsizing is going on at work. And I'd say, you know what, Chris, can you imagine how good it's going to feel? Okay, this is a very, very, very important point. Chris, can you imagine where we're going to be? Can you imagine? But I remember, I was like, man, I did that. That's how I did this. I said, Chris, can you imagine how good it's going to feel when you've got a check for, what's it take for you to, get off work? Well, I'd probably need about $5,000 a month. Can you imagine how good that's going to feel to not have to worry about a $5,000 a month check coming in because you got one with this company? Can you imagine how good it's going to feel when you walk in and fire your boss that you don't like? Greg, can you imagine how good it's going to feel when you're making $20,000 a month, whether you wake up or continue to sleep all day? Ron, can you imagine how cool it's going to be, because he talked about his vacation, how good it's going to be and how good it's going to feel when you're laying on the beach, you got your toes in that sand, and you got a good old tan. You have to learn to put people in a place that they want to be, not where you think they should be. Okay? I'll tell Ron, Ron, listen, we've gone back a ways, or and I'm just using this as an example. Ron, I am convinced that if I continue to just stay consistent with this business the way I'm doing right now, in a year I'll be making $100,000 a month. I'm almost positive I'll be making $100,000 a month on this. And a guy like you, remember you were telling me about, your background? You could easily do that, if not more. I mean, can you imagine what you're going to be doing with that kind of money? What are you doing? When's the last time people in the real world actually had a dream? Real world, I call it, right? At corporate America, when's the last time somebody in a job walked up and say, Darlene, isn't it going to feel awesome when you're making $20,000 a month? They say it at work a lot of times, don't they? Right? Oh no, right? No, they don't. But do you see what I'm saying? When's the last time you pulled it out? Guess what somebody's going to want to do? Somebody or people want to join people that are going somewhere, but most importantly, somebody that believes in their ability. Okay? They have a positive expectation for what that person is doing. When you listen to really, really successful people, they can tell you where they're going typically. When they're talking, they can tell you, they rattle it off. The reason people want to be, why do people without money a lot of times want to be around people that have money? Vision. They're going somewhere. They have something that they want. They have something that they want, and that's what drives them. People are not driven by how you give the presentation, whether you put the coding page first or last, whether you talk about how much it costs to get in or you don't. People join your business because you're able to convey vision with heart and with enthusiasm. That's the only reason that I have the success that I've had. If you've seen me up here, I'm not any smarter than anybody in here. Most of the stuff you could have learned by reading some of the books or listening to probably some of the leaders in the room. I'm just saying it from a different perspective. If you travel more than 50 miles, you're an expert. Did you know that? That's a rule. So if you ever need an expert to say, yeah, this guy drove all the way in from Texas or whatever. Wow, he could be one day in business and he would be an expert because he'd go, wow, that he drove all that way. He's got to be smart, right? But do you see what I'm saying? It's so critical that you are pulling vision out of people because that's what they're going to join. People are going to stick around. Here's the thing too, when you finally get a rep in, okay? When you finally get a rep in, the rep will join a lot of times for the money because they see this as a vehicle, but the rep will stay for a relationship. Reason we have meetings like this and social events and people gathering at each other's houses are why. You strengthen the relationship. And when you strengthen the relationship, there's more of a commitment there. And when you bring a group of people collectively, like I do home meetings all the time. I do a lot of home meetings because one, I give a quick presentation. It's like 20 minutes long. But then the real meeting happens after the presentation because now we're sitting down and I'm building a relationship with Jairus and Kari and Carrie, right? Carrie, and Charles. Carrie, I didn't know anything about Carrie before, but now I can sit there and guess what? He's going to relate to me more. He'll want to join the business more because he felt good than anything he remembered. Because a lot of people get too hung out in the details. I am so not a detail person. I think I've proven that. Is you have to build the relationship. People want to be around people that just make them feel good. That can joke with them and have fun and not be businessy all the time. I had to learn that. Obviously, I did it all wrong in the beginning. But a lot of things what I did was I would always be, well, Chris, come over to my house and we're going to get into some intensive training. Chris is brand new. Chris, did you make your list? Yes. Did you make 50 phone calls today? Da-da-da-da, right? Chris will be more motivated if I just am building him up and he'll do anything it takes to do anything to make any amount of money that he wants to make if he believes in his vision enough. The only reason I'm standing here right now is because I believed at one point in my life that I had a big enough vision that I could do it, that enough people believed in me. I could cry for some of the guys that mentored me way back when I first started in Excel. These guys took me. I had no financial benefit whatsoever to take me into their lane. We were the same age, but we became friends, and they believed in me, and they said, man, da-da-da. And they were all making a ton more money than me. But they all believed in me, and I stuck with them because of that relationship more than anything else. But I continued by building that relationship and associating with successful people. Well, guess what happened to me? I started to believe all those things, that I could do better, I could be better, I could have better. And then what happened was I just started walking better, talking better, thinking better, and I started to be a better person, and then I was able to attract those people or get in front of those people that realized that I wasn't crazy. You know, that I had something that they wanted and they wanted to be part of. Okay? Great opportunity because we have a great people running it, a great story, great enthusiasm, you know, everything's in place for us, but we just have to learn to be normal people. Not freaking anybody else out there, but building relationships, people, and we have to look at this from a long-term perspective. All right? Okay, how I made all that money, I just, real quick, 93,000 or whatever. Basically what I did is exactly what I told you. I made phone call after phone call after phone call. I did 3 and 4 home meetings a week when I first got the thing going because I had to get my thing launched. I had to make the initial push real quick. Here's what I'm going to tell you. There's a thing that I like to call the tipping point. And you might want to write this down and I'll tell you the story of it so you'll remember it better. This is probably the single most important thing that you can take away with you, is that every business, especially in networking, has a point that it will start to take off without you. And I call it the tipping point. It's where momentum actually goes. And your business will typically, if you want to look up here real quick, it looks like this. It'll go just like this, like if you had a little graph. So if you had that right there, and this was your starting point, it would go like this, and you go like that, okay? What happens is right there at the end, right there before it tips, and a lot of times you go like this because you have to put your best time to work hard is when you're most enthusiastic. You ever see people, typically, and I'll prove it to you that it's more, people get in more out of enthusiasm than smarts, is most people sign up the majority of the bulk of their reps in the first 30 to 90 days that they join the business. The problem happens right after they start getting smart. Once they start learning a saver, once they learn about the detail. Well, I got to know all this. Well, didn't you just put 5 people in a week and you were just completely dumb about the whole thing? Yeah, but now I got to know because more people are going to ask me questions. No, you stick with stupidity and you stay on track. That's what I did. I stayed dumb. I purposely stayed dumb. And I'll prove it to you. But I'm telling you, this is an important point, to stay dumb. When have you heard that in this business? I bring on some quality training here. I learned to stay dumb even when people ask me questions, I'll say, remember this phrase, it's the greatest phrase of all time. Ready? I don't know. Man, that's my favorite. And I shut up. I've learned to be quiet too. I learned to stop talking and let people do that. Well, I don't think I can do this. You know, what do you think is going to happen with the company if they don't get that fixed? I don't know. Well, I didn't get a check, because I didn't do that. Well, I'll look into that. When do you think you're going to open up Japan? I don't know. Some people will go, man, let me stop what I'm doing so I can find out when Japan's opening. Even though there's, 75 million people in a 100-mile radius of you need Japan. All right, so you're going to spend $1 million to fly to Japan to train people when you can stay right in your backyard. You're smart. Okay? I don't know. It's an empowering phrase that if you learn it, you'll be a brilliant entrepreneur forever and ever. Okay? But I learned it. I say, I don't know, and I remembered. What was it? I was... Tipping point, thank you. Believe it or not, I'm not doing this on purpose. So I'm good. I think I'm running out. My food level's starting to drop. I didn't eat my... You got my McMuffin back here? I won't eat it in front of everybody, but make sure you got it handy here shortly. I eat like every 2 hours. That's how I live. I have to have my blood sugar up. But with the tipping point, what happens is most people start their work like this, but you have to get them. I've seen typically that if you have between 100 and 200 people come into your entire organization, it's where the numbers, the 80-20 rule, starts to take over for you. Most people fail in that window before that. Okay? That's why I draw out that power of one. I call it the power of one, the 12-month thing I drew out in the presentation, is to give people a perspective that it's going to take 6 to 8 months if they're consistent. Now, here's the thing I did on consistency. But the tipping point, what happens is you'll go like this and it'll go. But you have to get it to that point. And it might be a brutal, brutal haul to get there. But I'm telling you, once you get there, it's worth it. As good as you think it is when it happens, it's better. Okay? But also in the tipping point, I'll give you a story, you can remember this, is picture yourself on an aircraft carrier and you are the jet pilot getting ready to take off. Okay? What does a jet pilot do when they give him the go-ahead? Throttle. He starts to throttle, right? And he takes off. He takes off and he's going a certain speed down the runway. Now, if he was getting towards the end of where he needed to go and he let off on the throttle, what would happen to his plane?
Crash and burn.
What would happen to his business?
Crash and burn.
Hit the water and crash. But what happens when he comes off there, what does the jet typically do when it drops off? It drops slightly. A lot of times people's businesses, you'll look at them, they're going strong, 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 and then they start to second guess themselves. But then there's certain people that push, right there, it all of a sudden goes like this. What happens when the jet pilot, usually correctly, leaves the aircraft carrier? They go like this, then what happens? They throttle down. They actually they push harder instead of complaining and talking and whining and making excuses, right? But this stupid plane, it used to go faster, but now this guy didn't change my tire, and I only got one missile, and I'm going to definitely need 3. Right? People will come up with any excuse to justify why they're not successful. You're throttling down, right? And what happens when that pilot hits that, you'll see it, and it just starts to go like that, and then what happens? It all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it goes, and now it just disappears. You can't even see it. It hit that much momentum. Because the law of lift superseded the law of gravity. The law of lift. Because right now, every one of our businesses, a lot of them, they're in the point where they're just running down the runway. Okay? 2 options. Pull off the accelerator, crash and burn. Accelerate, continue, stay consistent, and go. This one point, this is real important, and I want this story to sink home. It's consistency. I went to a top money earners dinner with my last company, and guys were making huge, crazy money. It was awesome. But instead of sitting around and being one of them, I thought, you know what? I got the opportunity to pick the brains of some of the smartest people in this industry. So what I did is I grabbed a small notepad, I took it with me to the dinner, and I walked around every one of them, and I asked every one of them this one question, and I wrote down the very first thing that came out of their mouth. I said, Ron. That's all right. I say, Ron, what is the number one thing you would attribute to your success? And I shut up. Easy question, right? You might want to do that when you're out and about, business people. I say, Nancy, what is the number one thing that you attribute to your success? And almost without question, without missing a beat, not one of them told me about the website they used. They didn't say about the tool they did. They all said the number one reason they were successful was they were consistent. Consistency. Nothing else matters unless you're consistent. Because if you look around, there's a great book like The Greatest Salesman in the World, and there's stories on people that have handicaps and things like that all they were was consistent. They didn't give great presentations or spectacular. They were consistent. And the number one money earner with that company, he said, I was catching him as he was walking on the bus. Now here's me. I'm walking with him. I say, hey, I got a quick question for you. What's the number one thing you would attribute to your success? And he starts walking. And he said, oh, that's easy. I swing the bat as many times as I can. Eventually I get a hit. And sometimes I'll hit one out of the park. Thanks. And on he went. And I was like, man, that is brilliant. I swing the bat as many times as I can. Eventually I'll get a hit. And sometimes I'll put one out of the park. So I'm looking at my business the same way every time I build it. I learned these principles early on, so that I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't doing anything bad if I didn't get anybody in the first week or the second week or the third week. I didn't make any money in my first company for 4 months. Didn't make $1 and still stuck it out. And was with them for 4 years. But it was consistency. I went through every single person. I went through almost 60 top money earners. I think the minimum person making $50,000 a month. And every one of them, in one way, shape, or form, their number one thing was consistency. I talked to X amount of people. I just get more presentations out there, whatever. It wasn't details, it wasn't anything else, but consistency. And the fact that they showed people how they just went in front as quick as possible. Quick. Okay, you can't control. Somebody asked me about how do you motivate your downline, and I bluntly said you can't. You can't. Okay, you can encourage, but you can't motivate. Here's the thing, what happens with people. If you sign up 5 people, okay, and you've got one stud, what happens with a lot of people is they start calling the 4 duds. What can I do to help you with your business? Why don't you come to training? Run from the duds, focus on the studs. Run from the duds, focus on the studs. Because what'll happen is I may go out. I don't worry about if somebody gets in or not. Somebody asks me how I get somebody started. That is probably my biggest downfall. Is I have very little patience. I have a short attention span. Is I look at people as they should be self-starters. If they're going to make any big money or do this thing, most of them I want to have self-starters. As self-starters. So I'll make all my prospecting. I'll then sign my personals. But then out of my 10 or so personals, maybe 2 of them step up and start calling me. Guess who the phone calls are I make every week? To those 2 people, consistently. Most network marketing fortunes were made out of somebody sponsoring 3 to 5 studs over a period of time. Almost across the board, if you look at it, everybody sponsors 20 to 50 or whatever that stick it out. But then out of all the 20 they put in, their whole business might come from 2 or 3 people. Just 2 or 3. So your only objective is to do what? Sort through people as fast as you can to find those 2 or 3 sharp, self-motivated people. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't
Take them drink.
right? And you can salt their oats and kick them in and try to drag them. You can't drag somebody across the finish line. What happens when you try to pull people? What would it be easier? You and I running, and I'm pushing you, and you're running in the same direction because you're motivated, or me dragging you, trying to run myself, pulling you behind me, right? Person that's being pulled is going to drag you down. You're going to keep calling. Well, am I the only one who gets those phone calls? You know what I've done? You should probably quit. I tell people to quit all the time. I need to get them out of my life and get them out of my way. So many people babysit. Oh, women are the worst. I'm just being honest. Women have a nurturing nature. Women are some of the best recruiters. In fact, most network marketing, 70% of all network marketing companies are made 70% of all network marketing companies are made up by women. But a lot of it comes down to they're not, they coddle and they're very kind. That's their nature. We're men, we hunt. We just boom, 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 move on. Kill, and we're off. That's me. I just boom to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So you got to learn to be make it simple. Make it a process that you're moving through people fast, and you're not babysitting. You're not waiting on people to do certain things. I don't let somebody bring me down because they're whining and complaining. I'd say, hey, I'll push them off the... Learn to do that. Pass negatives up and positives down. Pass negatives up, even with people. Oh, you know what? I don't know that. Call Kirby. Here's his cell phone. Because Kirby's real patient. Kirby will take the time to do that. I'm out there recruiting. Right? So, you guys getting some out of this? All right.
Success.
Huh? Oh, success. You know what? I'm going to kind of wrap up. Is that cool?
Yep.
Because I'm about ready. I got to eat. Just being honest. This is something I learned at church. My pastor told me about this, and this was something that really made sense to me. I never forgot it, and I've shared with you. I remember he was broke, and he didn't know anything about money and making money and everything like that. And he was totally destitute. My pastor was. And then over a period of time, God showed him how to be prosperous, and he ended up being one of the most wealthy business guys I know. And he's a fantastic guy. And I remember when I was making no money, I'm sitting in church, and he's talking about prosperity. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, man, I am so tired of hearing about his money. Not that he was talking about money, but he was talking about how God can help you and blessing you and people being blessed and things like that. I'm like, I just complained. I was whiny that day. I'm so tired of hearing about that. And it was like a light shined down on me. And the pastor says, if you can't rejoice in someone else's success, you will never have success of your own. I'm like, oh, I heard that. I was like, am I on camera? Who heard me think that? Who heard me think that? But I'll never forget that. Because I remember I would drive around all these wealthy big houses. You know, that was when I was getting my... And I had one of those vans, I'm not making fun of anybody's van, but I had the van with the wood paneling on the side. That's a hoopty ride right there. That's good. I'm driving to church in one of those, and he's talking positive and stuff, you know. And sometimes you get fed up with not making it, right? And I started thinking about it. I remember driving through the neighborhoods, and eventually I started getting bitter towards people that were making a lot of money. Not in a not terribly, but I'd be like driving down, and I used to drive around, look at these houses, and man, I can't wait to get one. But then when my dreams started to kind of wane, because I hadn't really achieved it yet, I started justifying why they were successful. That guy probably sells drugs. What's he need 3 Mercedes for? That's stupid. I'd rather have a Yugo, because I get better gas. That guy's driving a Hummer. That's why the global warming's going on. That whole Hummer, hit guy had that Hummer. Dude, I would not want a house that big. You'd have to clean that. I bet that guy really feels bad when it's tax time. He has to pay a lot of taxes on all that money. I started thinking all those things, right? And when my pastor said that, I drove through the same neighborhood right after that. And I'm like, man, am I happy that guy's blessed. And hallelujah. Good for him. I hope he makes $1 trillion this year. Da, da, da. And I had heard another pastor say, he goes, you don't know the seed they've sown. You don't know, you see the result, but you don't know the price they paid or the seed they sown. Like, I'm sure a lot of you that are successful in business or in this business especially, and when you make money like, we're starting to make, a lot of times people come and go, man, you got lucky. Oh, please don't stand too close, I may whack you. Oh, you got lucky. Really? All those meetings driving through the snow and nobody showed up, 5 hours in a level 3 snowstorm? That was lucky. Lucky I didn't die on the way there, But thank you for that. That's fine if you think it's luck. You see what I'm saying? People a lot of times will justify it. But what had happened was, and here's the thing, is if you can't rejoice in what other people are doing successfully, you will never have success of your own. And you also have to understand that money's not good or bad, it's just stuff. Okay? Now, here's the thing. If somebody is an idiot without money, they will be a huge idiot with a lot. If somebody's good that doesn't have money, they'll be awesome and a great person in society if they have a lot of money. Right? In case nobody figured out, money pretty much makes everything go around. Money answereth all things. That's in the Bible.
That's right.
Okay, I'm not going to preach on it, but I could. But these are things that are very, very important. They go right down into the heart level and the root level. That here's the thing, a lot of people, and I don't know if it's you guys, somebody's got to hear this, somebody's supposed to hear this, is that you're not successful yet because you are offended by other people's success and you're afraid of it. A lot of people are afraid because they've either been raised that way, and it's not your fault necessarily, but you've been raised that, I remember being raised like that. My dad was like, called it it's just filthy rich. Filthy rich. Remember, you heard somebody said it? Maybe we've said it. Filthy rich. What does that mean? That's dirty money, right? If that guy has money, then he's got to be doing something wrong. But what it comes down to is a heart issue. It comes down to a heart issue that if you can't rejoice in somebody else's success, you won't get any of your own because you can't you can't attract what you're trying to push away. And a lot of people do that, and it's such a strong point that I think a lot of people in this room probably aren't even, it's not that you're not recruiting properly, it's not that you're doing it, but you don't necessarily believe that you're allowed because you've been raised generation after generation, nobody's made money in your family, but you're at a point in your life where if you just push through and realize that it's okay to have money, it's okay to be wealthy, it's okay to do something good, you can do it. And I'll give you a final testimony here, and because it's important that you hear this. Is I always had a heart to give, but I wasn't able to do so because I didn't have any money. You can't give to the poor if you're one of them. It's common sense, right? I want to give to the church, and when's the last, and people rally around that. But the things that we've been able to do because we've learned those principles and the heart issue and money not controlling you and everything like that, and it is a good tool. It's a good tool if you get the money out there. That we've been able to. We've helped buy a house for a single mom. We've helped our church. We've given our church. We donated money. My pastor, we gave $120,000 to our pastor last year for his ministry because we had the heart. Because that guy changed my life because I watched what what he did. It was amazing that I sat through that and I was like, man, where I was, and he did all those great things. It wasn't cool. But what it was is it wasn't I was given money because I felt obligated to, but it was I was thankful at where I was, and I'm hold on. And the thing is, it's the same thing with this business. Is I don't, I know where I was in this business years ago. It sucked, to say the least. It was terrible. I had to say something to pull me out. But it was so bad. And to see this thing, what we have here, and the people I've met, and and the relationships I've built over the years, it's something special we've got. It's something we're a part of that we can make a difference with. And even if you don't do this business, if you're doing something to push forward and help other people, you'll be blessed because of it. Because that's I would assume everybody in this room has a heart to do that. And sometimes you just have to have that breakthrough. You have to have that breakthrough that God wants you to be rich. He wants you to have the money, because if you don't, you can't help anybody. I looked at my church and I was like, we were in a warehouse. It was a warehouse.
Okay.
And I learned so much that what happened with me. I learned a lot of stuff there, and stuff happened with me, and in the bar industry and everything like that. And they wanted to expand this vision that nobody had the money to because everybody's broke. Of course, I'll get no's in this business, and I'll take them. You know why? Because I can make a difference down the road, and it's going to be worth it. Feed the kids helps too. But you see what I'm saying? It's something that you can do, that anybody can be a part of this, and if you take it and you run with it, you'll change who knows how many people's lives. I'm hungry and I'm done talking.